So, so today we are looking a bit at both the New Testament and the Gospel reading that we've had, and we're going to begin with the story. Now, I was quite dubious to begin with about this story when I first heard it. I wanted to look it up, but it seems to come from Open Doors, from a very reputable organisation, and the work of Brother Andrew there. So this is a story which is told by Brother Andrew, who worked for all these years with the persecuted Christian church. He tells a story of a Christian pastor who was traveling some years ago on a train in the old Soviet Union. There was just one other passenger in the railway car, and soon the two men were chatting. The subject of religion came up, and the other man extolled the logic of atheism and criticized religious belief. The Christian bravely expressed his own views and even took out his Bible to show the man some relevant verses. But the atheist was both unmoved and annoyed. As the futility of their argument became clear, the men lapsed into silence. When a little later the Christian was nearing his stop, he left the compartment for a few moments to go and get his suitcase, and he returned to find that his Bible was missing. The atheist was just closing the train window and sneered at him. It was clear that he had thrown the Bible out of the window. The journey continued the last few miles in stony silence. A few months later, a stranger came to come and call upon the pastor in his village. It was a man from a neighbouring village who asked if he could be baptized. The pastor was astonished and asked him what he knew about such things. The stranger then told this story. Until a few months ago, I knew nothing of Christianity. I am just a local builder working on a site near the railway track. Then suddenly, one afternoon, a book came flying out of the window of a passing train and landed in the dust nearby. I walked over and picked it up. It was a Bible, the first I had ever seen, so I took it home and out of curiosity I began to read it. I was amazed by what I read, and I have become a Christian. Now I want to be baptized and meet with other Christians. I have heard rumors that you are also a Christian, so I hoped that you would help me. The astonished pastor did indeed baptize the builder and also confirmed his side of the story of the flying Bible. Within a few years, the builder had converted several of his neighbors, and a tiny Christian church had been planted within his own community, all because of a thrown away Bible. I admit that sometimes I feel very skeptical of that story, and that's why I went back to it again this week to kind of look at its antecedents. It's been used in the York courses, so I presume that they would have checked it a bit more for accuracy. But it is the sort of thing that does sometimes happen and make a great difference to our faith. A small thing can make a big difference, and just something which appears by chance to be happening for us. And I wonder what it is in your own lives that has actually made a difference to your faith, which has sown the seed of faith in your hearts and in your lives, or encouraged your faith in a way when it was kind of wilting or sad, or you didn't know about it. So what was it, this planting, which was important to you? It might have been something simple. It might have been one thing that you read. It might have been something which someone else left behind. It might have been your Sunday school teacher. I'd like at this point to say thank you for Mrs. Watson in my life. It might have been a kind word or an example of a friend who has faith. All these things which are little things which grow in our hearts. Now, these two stories, I have lots of stories I often tell with these stories, and they're stories of transformation, of planting and growing. Sometimes I tell the story of the very hungry caterpillar to think about transformation, to go with these pairs of stories, transformed from one thing to another. Sometimes I talk about this sort of transformation being like planting what you think looks like a very ugly onion and getting a tulip instead? What is it that God uses to transform people? What are the good metaphors and allegories and parables for that? But I want to think a bit more about this kind of broadcasting approach. So I'm going to throw my arms near my camera. It might look very army now. So this kind of metaphor of broadcasting, you know, throwing things. It's the method of sowing. If you go into Bush House of the BBC, they have the statue of the sower from the parable of the sower, and talks about broadcasting, putting something in a basket and throwing it, broadcasting it and seeing where it will grow. And this little bit that we had today is that God makes it grow, and the responsibility for sowing is that we need to sow, but it's God that will give the growth. So I wanted us to think today about those people who have sown seeds for us, seeds of faith for us, seeds of the kingdom for us, and our responsibility to also be sowing the seeds of the kingdom. It can be hard in certain Christian traditions. They want to know how many conversions that you have had in your ministry. We don't tend to count in that way. We have a bigger idea of what it is. I mean, in some ways, every time that I speak to somebody who wouldn't normally go to church about Jesus, I think, well, that is me doing my job. I am sowing seeds of the kingdom. I have resolved to try and do that with people who cold call me about things, but I haven't quite been brave enough yet. Oh, they tended to hang up on me before I've got there. So I either have to say, no, this is a vicarage. I haven't yet managed to get the words. And because you've phoned the vicarage, I need to tell you about Jesus out. I'm assuming that will immediately elicit a hang up response, but we could see, couldn't we? I'll try and carry on with that. But wherever we are speaking to someone about God or Jesus' love, or even showing them in our lives that our care for them is based on our faith, then we are sowing seeds of the kingdom. It's difficult at the moment. The situation seems kind of very strange still, and we don't know what's going to happen over the next few weeks. But we need to think about this. We need to give thanks for those who have sown the seeds of the kingdom for us. And we need to think about our responsibility, all of us, of how we will be sowing the seeds of the kingdom for other people. Amen.